Here's Hunter Biden in a piece that maybe tomorrow, Stu, will play in its entirety. It's like 5 minutes, and it is remarkable. He taped this conversation on his laptop. He's having a conversation with another artist who is helping him, with his art, and he talks about his father. Listen to this.
He's going to talk about drug reform and any other things that I want him to. He'll talk about anything that I want him to, that he believes in. If I say this is important to me, then he will work a way in which to make it a part of his platform. My dad respects me more than he respects anyone in the world, and I know that to be certain.
He goes on to talk about how I call my dad all the time, and we talk about policies, and he's going to talk about this, and he'll push whatever I want him to push. It's an extraordinary piece of audio, especially when Dad said, I don't know anything about anything. We don't talk about anything like that. He's making it very clear on this. Joe Biden knows and talks about all of it. But Joe Biden is kind of an interesting cat because I don't know if he's deliberately ignorant, if he is completely senile, if they won't let him watch television. I'm not sure. If you look at the economy right now and how people are feeling, this man is more out of touch, I think, than really anybody since the Tsar Nicholas. I mean, he was out of touch with the people. I think Joe Biden is approaching this. Listen to how he talks about our economy and how people are feeling right now. This is cut 6.
Consumer confidence at the lowest in 70 years, lower than the Great Recession, lower than the stock market crash of the 80s, lower than after 9/11. What can the White House do, or will it do, to instill some confidence in the American people and the economy?
Well, it's important to first level set on where we actually are economically, and we are in a transition. We are moving out of what has been the strongest economic recovery in modern American history to what can be a more stable period of growth where we don't have to sacrifice all of those economic gains. And the key, I think, here is that we face real challenges, and prices being first among them, but we also have real economic strengths. The strength of our labor market, the strength of household balance sheets, where notwithstanding people are reporting low confidence, they are also reporting record highs in terms of financial stability.
Stop for a second. Stu, do you know anyone who is feeling financially stable right now? Do you know anybody who's like, you know what, this is bad, but I've got so much money stacked away in the bank that I'm not worried about it?
Yeah, I mean, even people who are well off, I find. I mean, as you know, Glenn, we constantly gather in country clubs and have cocktail parties with elitists because we're conservatives. And when we do that, even those people, I mean, you even notice people who are well off and have a decent amount of resources, they have no idea how to protect them. Where do you put this stuff right now? You've mentioned gold earlier, which has held up really well as compared to pretty much everything else over this period. But like, you know, you're in crypto, you're down. You're in tech stocks, you're down. You're in the S&P 500, you're down. You're in cash, you're definitely down because inflation is wiping you out slowly, even though you don't realize it. And all of this like adds up. I mean, they keep saying this, that like people have a higher amount of money, in their savings accounts. And it's just like, it's completely a ridiculous measure. They gave a bunch of free money to people and told them they couldn't go anywhere. So yeah, a lot of people wound up over the COVID period saving some money because they were terrified of what was coming next. And that money is just slowly dwindling away. And over time, it will go away completely and we'll be in crisis.
Right. If it is kept in a bank, but I'm not sure it's being kept in the bank anymore. I think a lot of people have just blown through that. Not blown through it, but how many weeks can you fill your car once or twice a week at $120 a tank? How many weeks can the average person do that? I don't know. But I don't think very long. Biden goes on to say, this is when he was at the AFL-CIO, that problems are bad, but not like everywhere else.
Under my plan for the economy, we made extraordinary progress. And we put America in a position to tackle a worldwide problem is worse everywhere but here.
And then he says inflation is not because of reckless spending. Cut 8.
I don't want to hear any more of these lies about reckless spending. We're changing people's lives.
Okay.
What? Stop. Why is he
you
so
see
angry?
what he's saying here? He is, I don't know, because he's an old man and he's angry. You see what he just did? He says, I don't want to hear about this reckless spending anymore. It's all lies. We're changing people's lives. So what he's saying, as I interpret this, and I hate to interpret him because he may not have had any idea what he was talking about. But if you want to look at that logically, what he's saying is it's not the reckless spending that is causing all of these problems. That's a lie. We are changing people's lives, meaning we are getting off of all of the fossil fuels. We're changing the way the economy even is run. We're leaving capitalism and going into the Great Reset. All of these things have to be done, and it's going to be painful. And we're going to be saving people's lives because of this. I think that's a moment of real honesty where he's telling the American people, because he's done it before, this is going to be hard, but at the end of it, we're going to be better off because we won't be on fossil fuels.
Yeah, and I think it's important to look at what could have been here. When we were going through COVID, I remember, Glenn, having a conversation with you saying that, this is interesting in that we're seeing a real test of what conservatives believe about spending. We've talked about this for so many years, and spending's always been bad, and there's always been a problem. But our case was always, if you start going crazy, there is a breaking point. And there was the competing ideology of modern monetary theory. And we said during the time, look, we're just experimenting with this. We're going for it. We're going to print $4 trillion, $5 trillion. We're going to have all of this money coming from the Fed. And if there's not an effect from this, I don't know, does that prove our thesis wrong all this time? And here we go. Yeah. They do this. They now print another, then Biden comes in, they pass another multi-trillion-dollar bill, and we're seeing that the entire time, the conservative position on this was correct. Look at inflation and what's happening right now. It's destroying families. And I think it's important to remember that the Democrats wanted and almost got another $6 trillion of spending between 3 and 6.
Let me tell you, I want to end the program with a piece of audio on that very subject. We'll do that in just a minute. I want to play a piece of audio here that I think really says everything you really need to know about what is really happening in our country. Stu was just talking about inflation and saying, they could have had $3 to $6 trillion more, and everybody was for it. But people are now pretending that they weren't for it. Let me play this little flashback from Joe Scarborough on MSNBC. Listen.
This is pretty simple stuff. Let me say that again. This is pretty simple stuff. You get the head of the Progressive Caucus, you get Joe Manchin, and you get Joe Biden, and you put them in a room. And you say, we're not going to get out of this room until one of two things happen. One, we have a deal. Or two, we're going to have a press conference where we go out and announce that Joe Manchin does not support any piece of legislation regarding Build Back Better. We either have a bill or Joe Manchin will never support anything, and he's been lying to us for the past year and a half. It's very clear. And my God, I just wonder what would have happened if progressives had gotten their $6 trillion wish earlier this year.
Yeah, in an ironic way, you almost have to thank Joe Manchin for blocking that.
I wouldn't even say ironically thank Joe Manchin. You can just thank Joe Manchin if you're glad that interest rates aren't even higher.
I mean, look at that. He was saying to his audience and a group of experts, look, you just have to throw Joe Manchin under the bus. He's not going to go, but we can't stop this. We have to have this. Now, as if he never said any of that? Yeah, well, you got to thank Joe Manchin for that. These guys have no soul. There's just no soul left.